He who hears the rippling of rivers will not utterly despair of anything. That was said by Henry David Thoreau, a lover of wild places. Thankfully, there are still rivers that run wild, where watersheds are relatively unpolluted, intact. These are river systems without hydroelectric dams, invasive species, pulp mills, or open net pen salmon farms. On these rivers, self-sustaining runs of wild Atlantic salmon do what they've done for millennia, unencumbered by man and machine. And it's on one of these wild rivers where we will conclude our series. I'm Kristen Knoll, and this is the Saving Salmon podcast. The Atlantic Salmon Federation is a world-leading advocacy association with more than 25,000 members and volunteers. As you've heard throughout this podcast, we perform complex river restoration projects all over the Atlantic, from Maine to Greenland. In this vast expanse of rivers and ocean, there are wild ecosystems that need to be maintained. These rivers also show us what can be achieved with hard work and the right partners who care about wild places. And that is the final journey for Bob Keating, back to Newfoundland to investigate the Wild Salmon Watersheds program.
Yeah, and thrilled to be going back to Newfoundland. It's actually the last province in Canada I visited, and I love the place. It's beautiful, as you know.
You saved the best for last.
Yeah, that's exactly what someone from Newfoundland said to me before an interview. Yes, I did. One of the best, anyway.
So which river are you taking us to?
Well, we're going to conclude on the Terra Nova River in central Newfoundland.
And why did you choose the Terra Nova?
It's a truly wild place, the type of place you described off the top of the podcast. It has no heavy industry, no commercial fishing or major invasive species, or even, for that matter, big towns or cities on its banks. It's a river that few people know about other than Newfoundlanders, and most of them have likely never paddled or fished it because most of the Terra Nova is truly remote. It's a wild river.
Yeah, I've only ever been to the mouth of it in Glovertown.
And you're not alone in that. When I sat down to do my research on the Terra Nova, I did what most journalists do when they begin a story.
Does that mean you typed it into Google?
Exactly. Dr. Google knows all. I'm going to give you the entire Wikipedia entry on the Terra Nova. This is it. The Terra Nova River is a river in the province of Newfoundland and Labrador, Canada. It drains an area in the center of Newfoundland, discharging into Bonavista Bay. The Terra Nova River passes through the northern end of Terra Nova National Park, which derives its name from the river. The river also has a healthy run of Atlantic salmon. That's it.
So it doesn't even say how long the river is?
No. I live on the Columbia system. There's 15 pages in Wikipedia. That's like 4 sentences. But for the record, the Terra Nova is 140 kilometers long, fourth longest in Newfoundland. Its source is Naindock Lake, roughly in the center of the province. But it flows through and creates this chain of lakes before it spills into Bonavista Bay. There are logging roads that come close to the Terra Nova, but you have to truly know them to get there. You have to know the bush to navigate those roads, and that makes this a wild river.
So why did we pick it as a river to profile?
Because it is wild. A place where Henry David Thoreau, as you said, would not despair of anything. As far as wild salmon stocks are concerned, they're actually better off than they were 100 years ago. Places like the Terra Nova show us what can be done. In that way, it's similar to the Penobscot River in Maine.
All right, I'm intrigued. Let's hear about the Terra Nova, Bob.
We'll start on the banks of the Terra Nova, at the foot of an old railway bridge spanning the river. John Baird coordinates a crew of 3 workers and 1 podcaster as we pile into boats.
You got a hat?
Yes. I've got one in my pack.
Okay, you can wear that one if you want.
Okay, that's got a fish on it.
It's got a fish on it. Yeah.
We're about to head down river toward the ocean. John, it turns out, is the ideal guide. He runs a non-profit known as Fayback, which does restoration work on the Terra Nova. Plus, he grew up here. The river is his backyard.
My ancestors were a big part of this river. My father was a kid in Glovertown. They used to go up the river. My grandfather was actually in the town we are in now. He was the forestry superintendent for the company that logged this area. So my family history goes back a long ways on this river.
And you? Do you have experience with it?
Oh yeah. I mean, ever since I was a kid, paddled around on it and enjoyed the river and got to love the river. And
Here you are.
here I am, yeah.
We're headed downriver to install a river watcher system. Simply put, a fish counter. And John tells me, a very modern fish counter.
And it's an automated system that counts salmon going through a fishway.
Quite a cutting-edge system.
It is. It'll count the salmon. It'll give you the shape of the salmon, the size of the salmon, so we'll get a lot of information for all the salmon that go through that fishway.
Are you not getting this information now, John, or you're not getting as accurate as you will get with this model?
We're getting the information now with a pretty primitive video camera that we record on a recorder that somebody has to physically sit in front of that screen afterwards and count the salmon as they go through. But years ago, there was a manual count done there with a crew of people actually counting the salmon every day as they went through. That was years ago.
This will do it for you. The miracle of technology.
Yeah, the miracle of technology, and therefore we won't have to keep people down there, which is very expensive, and we'll never, we can't afford that. But this machine will take care of a lot of that for us.
The Terra Nova is about 100 meters wide here, but it's shallow and complex to navigate with an outboard motor. There's one tiny community where we put in, and cabins peppered along lower stretches. Otherwise, it's remote.
The upper part of the watershed is quite wild in terms of untouched, except years ago there was logging up there. They used to have logging dams in various parts of the river. But right now, there's a scattered cabin up there, and there's a means to get in there by old logging roads that are now used as trails. But you don't see a lot of people up there.
It's as wild as Newfoundland gets?
It's pretty well as wild as Newfoundland gets, yeah. The very top of the watershed, I would say maybe 20 or 25% of the top of the watershed is in protected reserves. One is a caribou reserve, and one is just a general nature reserve. So nothing goes on up there.
We travel about 4 kilometers downriver and glide into the rocky shore.
What am I going to do if I see a rock?
Just tell me which way to go.
Go that way or go that way.
Yeah.
We tie up the boats and carry gear down a long path toward the falls. When we arrive, Sean Jackson with Faybeck connects a tablet to a computer stored inside a concrete fish lab.
Right now I'm downloading one of our many biotelemetry radio tag receivers. So we've got, I think, roughly 10 or so throughout the Terra Nova Watershed, and we've tagged approximately 30 salmon lower in the river, and we're tracking their progress as they move up. So we're here now at the Big Falls Fishway. We've got 2 stations here, one at the bottom and one at the top. So one of the questions that we're trying to answer is how long it takes the salmon to get through the fishway. So that's why there's 2 here at this location.
The Terra Nova is one of those rare rivers that, compared to years gone by, has greatly improved habitat for wild salmon. For one, the Department of Fisheries and Oceans identified it as a prime freshwater refuge for salmon and other sea-run species, but there were falls in the way. So DFO built 3 fishways bypassing 3 sets of falls, like the one we carried gear to. These fishways give salmon and other species access to hundreds of square kilometers of new river habitat. The other major improvement on the Terra Nova occurred when people and their machines got out of the way of fish passage.
In Newfoundland, if a man is not a miner or a fisherman, he may well be a lumberjack, which supply the raw materials for the pulp and paper mills.
The Terra Nova was a log highway a half-century ago. Logs were felled and floated from the bush to huge pulp and paper mills in Grand Falls and Corner Brook.
Wood is Newfoundland's greatest source of revenue. The pulp and paper industry brings in more money than iron ore and fish.
For a century, the Terra Nova was choked so thick with lumber and blocked by log dams, it's amazing wild fish survived. But somehow they did, outlasting the pulp and paper industry that opened up the Newfoundland interior.
I've fished on it a little bit. Friends of mine have cabins on it. And a while back, with the town of Glovertown, and the Glovertown Museum, I got interested in the history.
I meet up with the mayor of Glovertown, Doug Churchill. Doug is also the chair of the local museum board, so I pepper him with questions about years gone by. When you look at photos, the Terra Nova is choked with lumber.
Yes, and even up until, into the 50s and so on, a lot of local people here would go up to the Terra Nova lake and cut logs there, of course. That was a different purpose. That was for the local sawmills that were in the area. And at some point, some people go so far as to say there might have been 100 of these different little mills, family-owned mills that would saw lumber and in some cases build ships. So there was probably 5 or 6 different yards, boat building yards around Glovertown. It was the type of lumber that was there with the pine and the spruce and so on that was used.
But it was a full working river.
It was a full working river. So the logs would be cut in the winter, brought to the horse and slide, or later years in tractor, brought to the edge of the river, and then in the spring when the flood was on, the spring flood, of course, that would float it down the river. That was a process, yeah, for sure. It was interesting.
Terra Nova is one of those rare rivers, too, where it's actually better off now than it was, say, 75, 100 years ago.
Yes, apparently. I mean, the work that's been done by local groups, the local stewardship groups and so on, has made it, tremendously good river. There's probably more fishermen on the river now than there ever was before, because in earlier years it was a local fisherman who would use it, but now, of course, they're coming from all over the province to take advantage of it. And for the most part, it's still an undeveloped river, other than the fact that you do have some cabins, but there's no other real commercial development or anything of that sort on the river, so it's pretty natural. It's pretty good.
So you're already starting to see the benefits of a healthy river?
Oh, 100%. There's no question that the Faybeck Group and so on are developing the salmon stocks, and protecting the salmon stocks, I think, is having a very positive effect for sure.
So we're trying to learn as much as we can so that we can help these salmon out as we move into the future.
Back at the fall, Sean Jackson's data is downloaded. Sean tells me knowing more accurately where fish are moving helps identify prime habitat.
Salmon are such an important species in our region, recreationally, culturally, and also for tourism. They're a particularly sensitive species. They really need some help when it comes to the many different pressures they're facing, many of which are at sea, but also I would say our greatest challenge, and I know John has mentioned this, is climate change, and as well as poaching and other things. But climate change is definitely our biggest hurdle.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to ask you to take your seats, and we're going to get started here in just 10 seconds or so.
The next morning, the 4 river stewardship groups meet with ASF staff in Glovertown. There are 4 rivers and 4 nonprofit organizations in the Wild Salmon Watersheds program. They get together once a year to swap ideas and discuss upcoming projects. 2 of the rivers are in Nova Scotia, 1 in New Brunswick, and the Terra Nova here in Newfoundland.
The Sheddycamp River flows through the Cape Breton Highlands National Park. We have a small but healthy run of Atlantic salmon on that river. It's just a really beautiful river in a gorgeous part of Cape Breton.
I meet with Gillian Baker with the Sheddycamp River Salmon Association. Gillian tells me about the work they've been doing. The Sheddycamp is a beautiful little river, she says, that flows through a national park like the Terra Nova. And like the Terra Nova, it's in pretty good shape.
We've done restoration work on the Sheddycamp River, so building structures to improve habitat, to improve conditions for fish passage for salmon, particularly in low water conditions. We also do a lot of monitoring work, so collecting water quality data, a lot of water temperature work. We're also developing a watershed plan to help us better manage or work with the National Park, Cape Breton Highlands, to manage the Sheddycamp River and the Atlantic salmon fishery.
What would success look like to you then?
Success would look like continuing to see the river and the fish be healthy and stable, just long term.
Has this program helped in that way?
Yeah, the Wild Salmon Watershed program has greatly increased what the Sheddycamp River Salmon Association can do. It's allowed us to expand both the scale and the scope of our work. So we've had access to more resources, both in terms of funds to do our work, but also access to technical expertise, to equipment, materials. This year, for example, was the first year we were able to operate a small wheel on the Sheddycamp River. So there's never been an effort to actually count the smolts, so to have a pretty accurate idea of the juvenile production of salmon on the river. So that's been really exciting. We're hoping to continue that for several more years. We've also been able to increase our capacity. The Atlantic Salmon Federation has allowed us to participate in new training opportunities. Our staff has had access to, for example, fish handling courses, practice electrofishing. We've also not only worked more with the Atlantic Salmon Federation, but other partners like the Margaree Salmon Association, which works on the neighboring Margaree River.
The Margaree is also part of the Wild Salmon Watersheds group and a relatively healthy little river that begins in the Cape Breton Highlands. It has 2 branches that flow 120 kilometers spilling into the Gulf of St. Lawrence. I tracked down Paul McNeil, who's more than willing to brag up a river he so obviously loves.
It brings tourism that has been coming for over 100 years to our region, and to this day we have people from around the world come to the Margaree to salmon fish. Atlantic salmon is a catch and release word. I believe the first catch and release river in North America and possibly the world.
How has the partnerships that you're forming in here helped you?
Well, the partnerships through the Wild Salmon Watershed is the systems that are being brought together are very different. We're an old group. We've been in existence for almost 43 years as an association. And we're meeting groups that are pretty new to this game. So I think bringing those different groups, people get to see what other people have been doing for years and feed off that. And ASF has brought together, I think, the scientific and the knowledge that we don't have. We have basically local people, volunteers mainly, with a few paid workers to do the stuff that we think is valuable, but we don't have a scientist. It builds in that, I would say it's the stability of looking for a direction in the future. That last conversation in there was about how do we move forward. I think for many years, for us, it's 1 year after the other. You just survive 1 year, you get to the next year, you hire more people, you do a different thing. I think the stability that ASF has brought is what's tremendous value to the whole salmon industry in terms of protecting the species, enhancing the species, and moving forward, I think.
I want to speak to the 4th organization in the Wild Salmon Watersheds program, so I find Rick Watling. Rick is president of the Nipisiguit Salmon Association in Bathurst, New Brunswick. The Nipisiguit only has 27 kilometers of habitat before salmon reach impenetrable falls. But Rick says it attracts fishers from all over, and there's a string of lodges and guides that depend on a healthy river.
There is a counting fence on the Newfoundland River, and it's been going since 1970s. And this year has been record low waters. We've looked back for the last 40, 50 years, and from what we've been keeping track of, this year has been the lowest for the longest period of time. We've had low water level before, but not consistently low. It just seems like it's going nowhere but down because we haven't had any rain all summer, basically.
So that's the hardest thing to deal with, isn't it? Because that's a planetary thing, climate change.
You can have the best habitat in the world, but if you have no water, it's pretty hard to attract salmon. Or we were saying that with a few of the ASF staff that come with us, did quite a bit of work with us this spring, that places where we electrofished in June and July, there's absolutely no water.
Is there any way to mitigate for that, for climate change, for the thing the planet faces?
That's a big question. If everybody could answer that, we would really be in the money as far as salmon goes. But I don't know. Collectively, there is stuff that could be done.
For those of you that were in Bathurst last year at our Wild Salmon Watershed Network meeting in August, when I was looking at forest fires across all of Atlantic Canada, I was really struck with actually quite a sense of despair. I was, oh my God, what can we do here? And then we had a meeting actually with FABEC where we sat in, and I was inspired because they took that and they said, okay, that means we got to act now. We got to get going. We got to do that. And so I want to impart that. I think that's where we're at, right? Where we do have that sense of urgency.
That urgency is felt by all at the Wild Salmon Watersheds Conference. Water levels and temperature have become an issue on the majority of North American rivers. It's the big challenge. But when it comes to the 4 Rivers in the Watersheds program, there are reasons to celebrate. And so they do, Newfoundland style.
Okay, so just so you know, I'm going to show you all how it's done, because apparently I've been just told that I have to dance. So this will be my second time. So it's hold on, keep moving, and don't laugh at me.
It's a lovely night at the Search and Rescue Hall in Glovertown. Out-of-towners are screeched into Newfoundland, as is the custom here. Then we're urged to square dance along with the time in the hall dancers, which is awkward for me, but fun at the same time. ASF's program director for Newfoundland and Labrador, Kim Thompson, helped put this conference together. Kim makes sure we feel that sense of welcome Newfoundlanders are famous for, and tells me about the passion needed for the job.
It's a network of passionate people that care about wild Atlantic salmon. And so bringing people together, we're sharing information, we're sharing passion, we're sharing ideas, and through that collective collaboration and community of people, then ideas spur and then they bring them back home. It drives their passion because it solidifies why they're doing what they're doing when they're able to network and share information and talk to each other and get ideas.
You're also bringing together groups that have a pretty healthy ecosystem to begin with.
Yeah, absolutely, which they realize is worth celebrating. Instead, again, of looking at what they don't have, they're looking at what they do have. And we're helping putting them on that positive path forward. The collective group of people that are brought together, even within the ASF team, to help support this Wild Salmon Watersheds. We all have a different skill set that we bring to these community groups. And within the community group, they have a certain skill set. So we help those volunteers find a vision and a plan to help them know that the interest is there for a healthy watershed into the future.
And that passion, it turns out, is infectious beyond the stewardship groups involved. It spreads to the community. I meet the principal at the local school, Natasha Aylward. Her students were invited by ASF and FABEC to see the first smolt wheel on the Terra Nova and learn about the life cycle of the creatures in it. Natasha tells me they loved it, have become engaged, and have stayed engaged by the river in their backyard up till then they hadn't given much thought to.
They went to visit the wheel. It led to natural conversations about what was happening and the things that they were finding in the smolt wheel, besides the smolt, frogs, and other kind of, animals and things that would get caught in there. But it led naturally to conversation about, okay, well, are these items impacting the river system that we have here that are healthy right now? And how is it moving forward that we can continue to be advocates for sustainability in the future? So we wanted to create that kind of stewardship amongst our younger population so that would carry forward for years to come.
Do you think you're creating future biologists or at least volunteers on the river system here?
I do. I think so. I mean, we've gotten that opportunity from FABEC with some positions over the summer with students of ours who are really interested in the program. And they worked this past summer, 6 of them. And they have nothing but wonderful things to say about it. They were invested. They're going to be advocates moving forward for sure, right? And, I know a couple of them for sure are looking at that in post-secondary. And maybe we'll see them come back our way.
Do you think that the kids had little knowledge about the river system or salmon before going there?
100%. I mean, it's in your backyard. You don't necessarily gravitate to what you already have in front of you. You take it for granted, right? So just exposing that again to our kids, to our families, to our teachers, to our educators, and again, allowing for that natural exploration, the curiosity, to have those conversations at home. Kids were having the table talks with their parents about what they were finding at smolt wheel, how the salmon were growing. So that's what we want. We want the chatter at home too, so that way we can, build stewards moving forward. That's what we want.
I always say with the watersheds, it's the local people that know the watershed the best. And the beauty about here in Terra Nova, in the community of Glovertown, is the community has embraced this. The community has embraced the significance of having wild Atlantic salmon, healthy populations in their watershed. And so, the community has come on board in terms of the school engagement. They're rearing fish now as part of the Fish Friends, which was a program that ASF had back in the 90s. That's so important for youth to understand the life cycle of the salmon. And so when the students receive the eggs in the school, they see them go from the egg stage, to the fry stage, and then they get to release them back into the river. So they understand then the cycle and have a better understanding and want to care.
Kind of critical that you have locals involved, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. And we couldn't do this work, ASF couldn't do this work without the community, without the stewardship group. And FABEC Freshwater Alexander Bay Ecosystem Corporation are phenomenal. And they have a plan now. Through the Wild Salmon Watershed program, they have a plan in place so they can see strategically. And with that plan in place, it's invigorated them as a stewardship group. It's invigorated the community and has also brought on other partners to help out, like DFO. And that's what it takes, right? It takes collaboration. Not one person can do it all.
Proud of the work you do?
Absolutely.
Why?
Because of the people that I've met and the people that have so much passion to work towards doing better and having a sustainable resource, and the network of people that are concerned but too passionate about wild Atlantic salmon, culturally and economically significant to a lot of communities in this province.
Wow, that sounds like a lot of fun, Bob. I hope you put your microphone down long enough to get a dance in.
I did, and discovered something about square dancing I just did not know.
What, pray tell, is that?
That songs in square dancing all blend into one another. There's no break between them, so agreeing to a dance is agreeing to a half hour on the dance floor. It's a bit of a dance marathon.
Did you learn how to do-si-do?
I did learn how to do-si-do, and Alamande left. I learned a lot of things in Newfoundland, and about systems throughout this podcast series, rivers and oceans.
Yeah, you've seen a lot of rivers and you've heard a lot about our projects. What would you say your biggest takeaway is?
That the work is important and that the river systems themselves are resilient if you do that work. For example, where I live out west in Canada, there's all kinds of talk about removing dams, but it almost never happens. I saw what does happen if you take out a couple of dams, which is on the Penobscot, and it's remarkable. I was really surprised by just how fast a river system can rebound.
And on the Miramichi?
I think I learned there that managing wild fish stocks is a difficult balance, and even having a success like DFO had bringing back striped bass has consequences. Consequences you might not really consider when you're doing what you think is best. That's what I learned on the Miramichi.
And how about Burgeo, Newfoundland? Any takeaways there?
I learned a whole bunch about salmon farming, and I think the value of leaving some bays and rivers natural. Burgeo is a bit like the 4 Rivers in the Wild Salmon Watersheds program. It's relatively intact now, and I learned there's tremendous social and economic value in that. It is about balance.
Yeah, it really is, Bob. And I've got to say, I've learned a ton too, and I've had a lot of fun doing this podcast with you. I want to say thank you so much for coming east and learning all about what we at ASF do to conserve and restore wild salmon rivers.
It's really been a pleasure, Kristen.